We've assembled our handle, now we're ready to select our guides. CRB has done a great job pre-kitting guide sets for builders. They're available in 3 different grades: standard, performance, and elite, black or chrome, and of course spinning or casting. Now, one of the biggest issues for builders usually is trying to figure out the spacing. Each guide set comes with predetermined spacing based on the length of the rod you're working with. And of course, there are a lot of resources available on mudhole.com and some vendor sites such as fishmhx.com for spacing as well.
Right, and then the final step before we actually go to spacing the guides on the rod blank would be you just want to inspect the guide itself. Now, CRB actually pre-grinds the foot of their guides. Not all manufacturers do, but what you're really looking for is at the top of the foot, at the very tip where it meets the rod blank, you want a nice smooth transition for the thread to move up. If you run your finger over it and you kind of feel any bumps or irregularities, all you want to do is take a standard file, support the foot of the guide, and make a few passes over it. And keep doing that until the top is smooth. What that might do is create a burr underneath. So what you then want to do is double check and take the bottom of the guide foot and just run it over your nail. If it scratches your nail, probably you're going to scratch the rod blank. If you do find something, again, a few more passes over the file and just keep checking it until it's smooth again. And once that's done, we're ready for the guide spacing on the blank.
Let's get them set up.
So now we're ready to actually mark the rod blank where the guides go. And like we mentioned before, we're using the CRB guide system here, and they have the different rod lengths and the spacing charts right on the packaging. This is a 5.5 foot spinning rod, so we're going to follow the 5.5 foot spacing guides. And why don't you show them how to do that?
Right, so the few things you'll need to actually lay out your guides properly is just a China marker, and then something to measure out the blank. We've got our RBS track set up here with one of the offerings from Mudhole. It's an M tape. It's a stick-on adhesive back measuring tape. When we're ready to lay this out, the key point is to set your tip at 0. The spacing that's provided to you by CRB is actually going to be measured from the tip down. So once you've got it ready to go, you're just going to make a mark with your China marker on each one of the designated measurement points. Now, what's important to remember about these points is that this actually is going to represent where the ring of the guide is going to line up, not the guide foot. So you don't want to set it up at the front of the guide foot or the rear of the guide foot. It's actually going to represent where the ring lines up on that rod. So once we've got all our marks in place, we're ready to secure the guides to the blank and move on to the next step.
All right, let's move.
So we're ready to secure our guides to our rod blank. Now, to support the rod during this process, I've added our HWS hand wrapper to our RBS track. Now, to secure these guides to the blank itself, we're going to be using some 1/4 inch rod building masking tape. As you can see, we've already laid some down on the rod. Now, when we're ready to do this, I'm just going to take 1 inch or 2 of our masking tape, and I'm going to press it about halfway up the guide foot. When we're ready to place it on the rod, we're going to line our ring up with the mark we measured out earlier. Remember, the ring lines up with that mark, not the guide foot itself. Once we're happy, we're going to go ahead and tack the edge of this tape in place and rotate the rod, securing the guide on the blank using the masking tape. Now, what's important to remember during the process of securing your guides to the blank is you want to line them up with that spine mark you made earlier and ultimately with the reel seat. Once you've got everything in place, we're ready to move on to wrapping our guides.
So another way to adhere the rod guide to the blank is using the CRB guide foot adhesive. Tape works great, but lower profile guides tend to be more difficult to work with as far as taping it to the rod blank. So the CRB guide foot adhesive is really easy to use. You just melt the tip over an alcohol burner, run your guide foot over it, and then just place it on the blank, keeping in mind to line up the mark with the ring. And there you go. It'll dry, and it's a lot easier for smaller profile guides.